Hi, welcome to another episode of Cooking Under Quarantine with me. I'm Jonathan of J2 Food, and let's get started. So, for today's episode, we are going to be making one of my favorite dishes to make for. It seems very simple, but we don't crowd pleaser and it's very impressive to your guests. We are going to make a Moroccan Chicken Tagine with preserved lemon, olives, and apricots. Really delicious. It's just a little bit, unique and exotic for some people, and it's so much easier than people think it is. So, to get started, of course, we need chicken, right? So you can do this with fish, as long as it's a meaty fish like halibut or cod or something. Salmon would be okay. It gets a little bit more dull and it might break apart too much. You can do this with lamb. You can do this even with beef stew. But chicken is very traditional. We are not cooking today in a tagine, but traditionally this would be cooked in tagine, which is a sort of domed dish that you can see where it's a sort of shallow bowl, and then you put everything into the tagine, and then you put the dough on top. And traditional clay ones that are glazed, we put directly onto the stove or directly to the oven. So we are working on our chicken, and the first thing we have to do is make a spice rub for our chicken. Moroccan cuisine is all about the aromatic, beautiful flavors that you get from these spices that they toast and they cook low and slow, and it really enhances the flavor of meat and everything you're cooking. So we are going to put 10 different spices that will coat our chicken, and then we'll seal it in, and then that will then sort of flavor the rest of the dish. So you could be very creative with this, but I'm going to go with what I usually do. Measurements don't have to be exact, just eyeball it. So start with a little bit of black pepper, because salt and pepper are always the cornerstones of any well-seasoned dish. So salt, be generous with your salt, put like at least 2 tablespoons, because not only is it going to bring out the tenderness of the meat as you cook it for a long time, but salt also enhances natural flavors. I'm also going to add, this is not super traditional for Moroccan cuisine, but it's found in a lot of Eastern food called sumac. It has a very sort of like citrusy flavor, and it looks like they do like little dark black, almost like yellow seeds. Just put maybe like a tablespoon. It's really, really good. And then you want also some cumin. About 2 cumin, because another ingredient you also have. Cumin is very smoky. You find it a lot in Moroccan and Filipino dishes. You also find it in Mexican food. I'm also adding turmeric. Turmeric is a pretty neutral flavor, but it does a lot for the color of the dish, which is also important. And it supports a lot of the other flavors. And then something you find in a lot of Moroccan dishes, it definitely smells like fall, which is appropriate for today's recipe. Cinnamon. I'd say about 2 tablespoons of cinnamon. But remember, you can go however you want to with more of one thing, less of another. And then the last thing I'm doing is smoked paprika. Paprika, of course, is made from our friend the pepper, the vegetable, made from red peppers. And smoked paprika, of course, is just smoked paprika. Usually you find paprika very sweet. This one is not as sweet. Give this a little bit of a toss to get it back to the center. And then the last ingredient that we're going to be using is a Moroccan spice blend called Ras al Hanout. You can find it nowadays in most grocery stores, but if not, you can always make your own. It has nutmeg and ginger and more cinnamon and cumin and coriander. It's delicious. You can smell it Ras al Hanout right away. And give this, I'd say I'm going to put, honestly, I'm going to put the whole thing in, but I have a big piece of the chicken. So now, take a little whisk, or you can use your fingers or whatever, just mix up your spices, because we want everything to be equally distributed. We don't want big clumps of sumac or cumin or lemon on one piece and not the other. You should start to smell, it's going to smell a little bit salty, a little woodsy. You might have a little bit of that sort of like smell that you get from pie, the allspice and the Ras al Hanout. Don't worry, it's going to spread. Now, in order to sort of make this a paste, you're going to add olive oil, just enough, maybe a quarter of a cup, to turn this into more of a paste as opposed to a spice blend. And just mix it up. Use a spoon, use your hand again. It's going to turn to a sort of very thick paste. It's okay if it's somewhat liquidy. It'll firm up a little bit and it'll cook off later. But you need it to be blended enough that cook your chicken. So this is what mine looks like. Sort of looks like a little bit like chocolate sauce. It's not chocolate. And now just take your chicken whole, put it into your blend. I like to eat the skin on because I think it gives it a little bit of a crisp when you're sauteing it, and also the skin will give off fat later on the cooking process when you're braising it, and the fat will flavor, keep your chicken moist, and it'll be so good. So now's the time to get it with your hands and just dig in there. Everything should be coated. Don't worry if you feel like you have too much spice blend. You can always use it again later, and the chicken will also bring up more of this as it sits waiting for its big debut, because it is the star of certain things. So chicken is nice. Alright, so now that we have our chicken all mixed together and coated, we're going to put it aside. It needs to rest and be sitting in that marinade for at least half an hour. You can do it up to 24 hours in advance. So in the meantime, we are going to start cutting our vegetables, because they're going to take a longer time to cook in our pot. So I just have a simple variety. We have onions and garlic, like you always need in many of these braised dishes, and almost every dish you want to put garlic. But we're also going to add some carrots and some sweet potato, which is also a little bit different. But I think it takes a while, and it will cook really nicely down. It's braised and really good to fall. And you just want to cut these into chunks. So maybe like 1 inch or half an inch pieces. Nothing too big, because you need to give it time to cook. Say about that size of food. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's all going to cook down as it braises. And this is really wonderful for fall. It's really wonderful as the weather gets a little bit colder to have a nice bowl of this chicken tagine. You can have it just by itself. You know, add more sweet potato, add more carrots, potatoes, or you can have it over some couscous, what have you. A lot of people will peel their sweet potatoes or peel their carrots. I don't like to. I think there's a lot of vitamins in the skin. Just make sure that you scrub it well, so that you get rid of any sort of like dirt or preservatives that might have been on the skin from when they were grown. And you can cut the whole, you know, perfectly fine to eat it. Just cut off the very sort of like the end of the carrot and the end of the sweet potato. That might be a little gnarly. Alright, so we're just going to start putting all of our veggies. We're going to start with our sweet potatoes and our carrots first, and then we're going to add our garlic and onions, because the sweet potatoes take the longest to cook, along with the carrots, and then the onions don't. So we're gonna saute things a little bit first, and then we're going to add. When we add our chicken in later, after the chicken is going to have a spice cooked effect. We're going to first sear it with our spice rubs, and that'll seal the skin into chicken with that spice flavor. And then we're going to take it out. We're going to saute our vegetables in our delicious chicken fat. Okay, we're going to take the bottoms of these little carrots out. And then we're going to add our veggies. We're going to start adding our things like our lemon and our stock and everything delicious to make it a braise. And we will then add our chicken back in. And it'll continue to cook with the veggies and with all the spices and everything, and really give us a wonderful, flavorful dish with really super tender chicken. And that's really what we're here for, right? I'm always on team tender. So, carrots are good. We're going to fill this little bit at the end. And put it in our bowl. Just mix them together. And also put our onions. What we're doing now, where we're getting all of our veggies and ingredients ready to go before we even start cooking, is called mise en place. Mise en place is really referring to like setting it up in like bowls and stuff ready to go, but we're making sure everything is organized and prepared. Mise en place, everything in place, specifically so that when we're cooking, we don't have to worry about, oh, I forgot this or I forgot that. Everything is organized. Oh, you don't have to worry about your knife cuts for your onions and carrots and stuff. Everything is being braised, so no one will notice. It's all going to cook down. So this is the time to just be relaxed about it. Which is, this is my favorite kind of cooking. You have, yes, following a recipe and different techniques, but I'm not being super fussy about it. It's just very, low-key. You can do this with your kids. You can do this with your partner. You can do this, by yourself with a glass of wine. Highly suggest that. And it's very relaxing. So, we're just cutting our onions. Almost done. We have a nice little rough chop. Okay. And you can also decide how much onion you want, whether it's a lot or a little. I feel like throw in, if you have any older ones, now is the time to use them up. The more the merrier. This is a great way to use up if you have other vegetables that you don't know how to use. If you want like root vegetables that you have, it's perfect for like turnips or potatoes or even like a rutabaga or something. You just got that box from your CSA, you don't know what to do with it, or you had an interesting find in the supermarket. Now's the time to use it. Okay, these are onions, so we can keep them aside too. Now we have garlic. I like a lot because this dish is going to get low and cook low and slow for a while, and as the dish cooks, the garlic will get sweeter and more fragrance. So even though it seems like a lot, it is a lot. I'm going to use it. But I think you should use at least 4 or 5 cloves. If you want to use more like me, that's great. If you don't, you're also okay. You can also cheat and use some of the already cut, minced, chopped garlic you find in jars at the supermarket. That's okay, but the issue with that is that's usually great if you're doing dishes where you're sauteing first, and it's going to be a base favorite, but because this garlic is we're cooking our dish for a while, that garlic won't give off as much flavor because it's already been chopped and been sitting and stored there. Fresh garlic is really the best for this kind of dish where you're braising. You can also do a combination. You can also add garlic as one of your spices in your spice one for some, some minced garlic or even some, whole garlic or even some granulated or garlic powder, the one that you might put on your pizza, into your spice blend. That would be great. However you do, I feel like this dish isn't complete if you don't have a little bit of garlic flavor. So I'm just going to give this a rough chop. I like to do this to sort of keep the tip of your knife in your board and you go back and forth. A great way to get smaller size. And then use some scrape off the sides, straight from the edges, back into a square. And then you can rhombus on this one, I guess. Alright. This is good enough. Dump this. Put it off to the side right here, ready to go in later. So we've had our chicken has been cooking and resting, in our spice blend, which has our turmeric, our cumin, our Ras al Hanout, which has allspice and cinnamon and ginger, and this is super flavorful. So we are heating our pan, so it's hot but not screaming hot, and we are going to add a little bit of olive oil, even though there's oil in the paste. Not a little bit. We just want to go stick it. You're just swirl around. It's high enough because it's not smoking, but it's starting to come in from the sides a little bit. So start putting your chicken in, if you can, inside down. Want that sizzle. Okay. And however you want to do it, there's no right order for this. And you don't want to overcrowd the pan either. So this isn't about getting the chicken fully cooked right now. This is about giving it a wonderful sear. And I'll show you. It's already started sizzling. Yum. You just want it to sear, seal those flavors into the chicken, keep it moist. So as the chicken cooks, might be a time for you to put your exhaust fan on, just because of all the spices, there's a higher smoking point. But this process will also be toasting a lot of the spices, bring out even more flavor of the cinnamon and the smoked paprika and the sumac, that wonderful citrus smell that's going to go really well with our lemon later. I'm using a chicken cut up into 8 pieces. You can use chicken thighs, you can use drumsticks only, you can use chicken quarters. I would shy away from using chicken breasts, only because we're cooking this for a while, I'd be afraid they would dry out. You could use them, and I have done that before when I've done this in the slow cooker, which is so great. You still want to do this process first, then put everything into the slow cooker. Sort of set and forget it. And you can also do this with boneless chicken thighs, which is my preferred method if I don't have a lot of time. So I'm just going to show you what this looks like when you turn it over. Let's start with the piece. See how the sort of crust, the spices that form a little crust. It's gotten beautifully caramelized and really sealed it in. It's going to really flavor and keep the chicken moist for when we do this later. We add everything else in. So we moved my chicken into this bowl here, and the bowl is great because it'll catch any sort of juices that come off. And I'm putting it into the same pan. Don't even clean it out. I'm throwing in my carrots and my sweet potato. I want it to absorb the chicken juice and the spices to keep flavoring it. So I'm just going to give this a wonderful toss. Quick toss. Alright. And that'll keep cooking for another couple of minutes. And once it's sort of, let it cook for 2 or 3 minutes. So I like to add like maybe 2/3 of a cup of water at this point. Yes, it's going to produce that smoke, that's okay. It's just steam. You want it to help the veggies, the carrots, and the zucchini cook a little bit faster. But you just want to get them started in this process. So as they're sitting in here, yes, there's a piece of chicken in there. It's a bone. It's going to help tie the flavors together. Let this continue to cook here for at least like, maybe about 5 minutes as it softens, and then we'll add the rest of our ingredients. So I just added the potatoes and carrots to cook for a little bit to this brazier-sized dish. If you don't have a brazier, you can use a Dutch oven. You can even put this in your slow cooker. You can put this in a larger soup pot. And now I'm just going to add our onions to our pan and our garlic in a second. Now our onions and our garlic are cooking. Also in the same pan, the remnants, I'm going to put some of our leftover spice blend oil in there. This will really tie the flavors together. The onions and the garlic only need a little bit of time in this pan. This is just about starting to get them cooked. They're going to continue cooking and flavor the rest of the dish. So, in the meantime, we have our other pan is going to be on medium-low for right now, and then we're going to put it on lower when we're cooking it, the rest of it. It's going to be the base. Our chicken is going to sit on top of this, and we're going to add our liquid. We're going to add lemon juice. We're going to add a little bit of chicken broth. We're going to add a drop of harissa paste, which is a North African spice blend with chilies and other Middle Eastern spices. And we're going to add our olives with a little bit of brine and apricots. Yum. So our next important ingredients are preserved lemons. Now, preserved lemons, you can buy them at the grocery store. I'm using a brand. Now, you'll find them in the ethnic food section. You can find them, you can make your own if you have a lot of time. It takes like maybe 3 or 4 weeks. And you take lemons and you cut them. Often you either cut them into pieces or you take the whole lemon, you'll rub it with salt, and you will also put maybe a little chili or cumin seeds or whatever spices you want. And with water and salt, you'll literally preserve it that way. And it'll become briny and really tasty and flavor bombs. And the skin is really soft. You can actually throw the whole thing that we're doing into your dish. So I'm taking the whole thing, I'm putting it right into the pan that we have with our tagine. Yum. And then I'm also going to cut up some apricots. This is going to add sweetness to the dish. Also very traditional dried fruit. The savory dishes, very traditional Moroccan cuisine. Usually with lamb, you have fruit, or you might have raisins, or you might have something different like apples with vegetables. Apricots are very traditional with lettuce. You can add currants. It's sort of like the raisins, Middle Eastern cousin. Find this a lot in like Persian food as well. Just doing however many apricots you want. Only cut them in half. You're going to cut them smaller. It'll drink up some of the liquid that comes out, and it'll become really flavorful. But also take the space in your pot. So think about that when you're stuffing your dish. I'd say maybe a couple more. Good. So I'm going to take this too. Into the pot. We're cooking our onions and garlic with our spices, and they're really great. They're really drying out a little bit, and they're getting nice and toasty. So the last thing we want to do with these before we put them into the larger pan with our everything is our apricots now, our preserved lemon, our sweet potato, carrots cooked in the spice mixture. We want to put our olives and a little bit of lemon juice just to deglaze this pan. And this is going to give it a chance to sort of scrape up the juicy bits on the bottom, cook the olives, a little bit of the brine out. I'm also putting a couple of teaspoons of, maybe 3, I like it spicy. This is an already mixed harissa paste I love to use from the supermarket. It's Mina brand. They're also the ones who make the new shakshuka sauce, which is good. I've used it in a variety of ways. You can use, they have harissa paste they sell in like tubes. You can use a spice blend. You can make your own. It's really like a sort of very spicy tomato chili sauce, this version. And I think it's lovely. You can also skip it if you don't really like spicy foods. So let's give it another minute to just cook off. And give this a nice toss. And I gotta make sure the fire is turned on. Yep. And this is gonna be our bed. It's gonna flavor everything that comes on top of it. So now this is cooked off. You see how it's going? It's getting a little thicker. We're gonna start putting our chicken into our, because it needs to continue cooking and everything will tie together. So just start layering your chicken, biggest pieces towards the bottom, you know, and then you can fit the other pieces, the legs, or you're using boneless, however you want. Just play a little bit of Django with it, a little bit of Tetris. Right, I'm gonna put this here, I'm gonna put this there. Aha! See? Now we fit all the chicken there. And don't forget, this is our usable, all that delicious chicken juice right on top. Oh baby. Okay. Turn the heat off under here. Give this a nice last little swirl. Ooh, hot. I'll grab my little rag. And we're going to take this pan, carefully start moving it over. This has our olives, our onions and garlic. And so now look at our makeshift tagine here. It's layers of flavor. Oh my god. Now, if you cook your chicken too long, you could potentially eat this now, but we're going to braise it, right? And what does every braise need? Liquid. So we have our chicken tagine almost ready to start braising. I'm just adding, this is a combination, it's a 1 cup of chicken stock and half a cup of lemon juice. Just carefully pouring it into the dish. You want to see the liquid on the sides, but you don't really want it to come all the way to the top. I'd say let's add a little bit more. But you can use your best judgment. Some of it's going to cook off, but not all. Some of it will be absorbed. So I'd say a little bit on the sides here. This is about perfect. Maybe another 1/4 cup. I always get nervous. Don't worry, you want a little bit of extra sauce because, first of all, this is self-saucing, but also it'll make it delicious to go over whatever you decide to serve at the side. That's perfect. You don't want it all the way to the top. See how it's almost at the edge? Now, you can, if you have a tight-fitting cover, you can do that, or a dome would be the best. If this was a tagine, a real tagine, this would be the time to put the dome on. We are going to use tin foil. Now, I took a piece of tin foil, and I'm going to just put it on, just like you would normally cover a pot if you don't have a right tight-fitting lid. Start doing the sides. This is hot, so if you have sensitive fingers, use a hot holder. But if you'll notice, I put I snipped a little piece in the middle. When I pinched the corner of the center and I just snipped it with a kitchen scissors, that's how there's a wonderful hole for some of the steam to escape. And now all you're going to do is you're going to put this on medium, low, or medium, or low, depending on maybe a simmer low if you have that set on your stove. And you're just going to let this go for an hour. Resist the urge to check on it. It's going to continue cooking, the flavor is going to melt, it'll be delicious. Come back in 45 minutes to an hour. So our chicken has been cooking for a little over an hour. It's simmering. As you can see, the little hole at the top of the tin foil is letting off some of the steam. This sort of acts as like a makeshift tagine, where with the tagine, you have all the ingredients in the dome lid. The steam from the heat is going to go up and around, and it comes up as a little air hole at the top. So this is acting almost the same thing. So let me show you what it's going to look like. Remove the tin foil, and look how beautiful. It's simmering a little bit. The chicken has it's really tender. You can see it's sort of like just flaking apart, and everything is just really, the flavors are melted together. So what you can do now is you can turn off the heat and you can let it cool for a couple minutes. You could serve it just like this at the table. Or you could serve it over some couscous, you could serve it with some with some pita or some challah bread, like for if you're Friday night, it's delicious to dip. You can serve it even over noodles or something if you want. But really with couscous or rice or something starchy to absorb a lot of the sauce is traditional. And let me show you how I like to serve it up on a plate. So I'm not serving this with anything underneath, I'm just laying the chicken with those beautiful sweet potatoes and carrots and onion and garlic and all the spices together. It really makes for a beautiful plate. Chicken is super tender. You only really need a fork. It's going to come right off the bone. And the vegetables are wonderful tender. They cooked with those spices and preserved lemon with a little bit of punch. And I just garnished it with a little bit of fresh cilantro on top. You can put parsley, you can skip that step, you can even put maybe some slivered almonds or pistachio. Would be delicious in this. And so this is Moroccan chicken tagine without the actual tagine, and it's delicious, and it's really not a lot of maintenance to make. You could do this during the week, you could do this as a special celebration meal, you could do this for Friday night Shabbat dinner. It'd be lovely. So let me know how yours turns out, and see you on our next episode of Cooking Under Quarantine.